What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where me and my good friend Brian over there discuss comics that have been adapted into movies and streaming shows. Brian and I have thoroughly enjoyed talking about The Penguin, which is on HBO, but it also streams on Max. We are up to episode 5, and now we're currently up to date, Brian.
Yes, we're finally doing one episode at a time. My favorite thing. Although this was a very good episode as well, it's really hard to follow up how good the last two were.
Yep.
So, I mean, this definitely moved the plot along a little bit here, but I don't think all that much happened. Like, we could probably sum up what happened in like 2-3 minutes, honestly.
All right, well, that's it. Piece of cake.
We're done. Okay, that's a great video. See you next time, folks.
Well, that's good because Brian knows, guys, that I have to leave early to go see Venom: The Last Dance, which we're also going to cover too. I think that, we can sum it up real quick, but I think what stands out about this particular episode, two things. There's two really brutal moments in this episode, and then there is we see Oz at like his lowest, even though it seemed like he was like at his height like 2 episodes ago, and now he's like at his lowest. Would you agree?
Yes. All his planning keeps kind of backfiring or just going to shit as he goes along here. He made a play to kind of take over this new drug from the mushrooms from Arkham, and it's kind of gone to shit. But there's a little glimmer of hope at the end, I think.
Exactly.
For Oz, at least. It's also weird to say because these are all like criminals that you wouldn't actually want to do well necessarily, but these are the characters we're following. So,
right, and so you know what, guys? Spoilers. I think we're gonna jump around a little bit with this one. Oz does something in this episode that is pretty despicable, and I think that like you're rooting for him, and he just seems like an underdog for most of the episodes, and you kind of are worried for his safety a lot because of who he's interacting with. But then he does something in this episode where it's like, oh yeah, he kind of is a fucking bastard too.
Yeah, everybody is kind of a bastard.
yeah. So what scene am I talking about where he's fucking horrible?
The scene where he basically kills Maroni's son and Maroni's wife.
Yeah. I mean, we watch these things. You can kind of anticipate when stuff happens. I did not think he was leaking gasoline when the son stepped out of the car.
Nope.
But as soon as he took out the lighter, I was like, oh, that's gasoline.
Yeah.
And did you think that he was going to like essentially make his way to the mom and then like they were both going to go on fire?
I mean, that seemed to be what the plan was. It had to have been.
That's so fucked up.
It is really fucked up. But I mean, these are criminals families that I mean, both were planning to double cross each other. So it's just Oz was the one that came out on top right here.
Right. Yeah. And that's the funny thing about the show is that like characters make deals and they double cross each other and it just keeps happening constantly. I'm sure it's going to happen like 3 more times before the show's over. And I think there's only 3 episodes left. So we see the aftermath of Sophia killing all the Falcone people. And it's funny because I saw on Twitter a lot of people talking about the police chief's voice. Did that take you out of it?
A little bit, and he did have that voice in the Batman.
He did,
but it seems a little like he seemed a lot like weaker in a way. Like he seems like he's like maybe ill or something. I don't really know. I actually looked up like who the actor was and trying to figure out what it was about it. I couldn't find anything though.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember that voice when I saw the Batman. When he's like talking, because he's not Commissioner Gordon. Gordon's not a commissioner in the Batman.
Yeah.
And this guy's in a position of power, and he's just like, oh yeah, that's the Batman. Right? He's got this like raspy, like little kid voice, like, you gotta watch out for that. And like it's just like, why did they cast this guy in this role? I know that like Gotham has to have this kind of like Chicago vibe, maybe like a New York vibe, and this guy kind of gives off like a sort of like a New York cop vibe. Why do you think they cast this guy with this kind of funny voice?
I don't know, but it didn't take me out of it in the Batman because it wasn't as pronounced as it is here.
And
maybe the guy was just sick. I don't know. When he filmed the one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely noticeable, I think, in this show here. And I don't mean to like pick on the guy or anything like that, but yeah, it did take it out a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny because in the Batman, it's sort of like a straightforward thing where he's just kind of talking, he's like giving orders as a cop or whatever. But in this, it's a scene where you have two characters that essentially have knowledge, but they're not like saying the truth. They're just kind of implying things. And it's like you can't have that kind of voice for like a subtle conversation.
Yeah.
Did you buy like Sophia's story? Do you think that would fly the way that she kind of explained what happened?
No way.
Yeah. Like
me. I mean, the second she starts explaining it, the wheels were turning for me. I was like, oh, she left Johnny Vitti alive to pin it on him. But no, that's not what happened.
I think what she says afterwards, when the cop's kind of like, that sounds kind of convenient or whatever he says, she says something like, oh, you're gonna go to the police bar later and you're gonna like show photos to your other cops of like my dead relatives and stuff. I think that because she says that's what sort of keeps it from stretching the believability.
Yeah, it was a little kind of like you said, like they both know something that they're not openly saying, and it was a little cat and mouse back and forth, really.
Yeah. So she's on the rise, and she goes from being a Falcone to being a Gigante. And in the comics, she's called that, right?
Yes. So she is Sophia Gigante, but she marries into the Gigante. That's not her mother's maiden name. That's the difference.
I see. Okay. Is she really big in
the comic? Yeah, she was very, very tall and imposing in the comic, which I guess is probably not an easy thing to cast.
No. And then in that Long Halloween that we covered, the Tomorrowverse version, she's big in that too, right?
I believe so. They don't show her all that much, I don't think, in those though.
Yeah.
She was more prominent in Dark Victory. That's really what it is, and that doesn't cover that.
I think she dies in that Long Halloween Tomorrowverse version. I think she like falls on a car or something.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. So she announced herself as Gigante. So this brings us to the other really brutal moment too. I don't know if you can guess this one, but I just thought how sudden it was very brutal. But basically, she makes Vitti call together all these thugs and criminals that have worked for the Falcone Empire. They're all together, and he's basically going to be like her second in command, her capo. And she starts telling her plans, and he doesn't like it. He thinks it's gonna mess things up, and then she just shoots him right in the head.
Yeah, the best thing about it is that there's a line where she says, she goes up to him and like puts her hands on his shoulders. She's like, none of you were made men except Johnny here. And then, like, you just completely do not expect it. But she basically renounces the Falcone name, and then she takes out the last remnant of that. So it was really like a power move, because that was the whole thing. Is that Johnny said, "You need me because people aren't going to respect you if you don't have anybody backing you." So that was her move to do that. Like the last one there, she literally took out the entire family, and in addition to that being kind of scary, she's also promising to pay everybody better and to treat them, not like cannon fodder. I think she actually says that word, cannon fodder.
I think you're right. Yeah, and she dumps out like a giant duffel bag of cash too.
Yes, and I think that was also part of why Johnny was alive. I think she needed to find that money or get access to like the hidden money that that Carmine had.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like that whole sequence. I also did like when she was kind of torturing him in that boiler room where it was like really cold and she's pouring water on him.
Jesus.
That's pretty brutal too. Yeah. Did you believe his story where he said that he really loved her mom and like he wanted to help her escape?
Yeah, I agree with the character said. He said, like, I have no reason to lie about this. I mean, because what is that really? I guess he's saying like, "Oh, I was going to help your mother. I can help you." But yeah, I did believe it. I think it makes sense. I can see that sounds like a very plausible reason for why Carmine would kill Isabella in the first place. That she was going to leave, and he didn't want that because maybe she knew too much, or just the disrespect of it.
Yeah. No, it's really great writing because it kind of ties everything up in a nice little bow. It's like, okay, this is the reason why Carmine would have killed her. It also adds more dimension to that VD character besides him just being sort of like a foil to Sophia. So I really like that sequence a lot. And I said this in our previous recordings, but I really like that actor that played him. And I'm kind of sad that he's gone because I like seeing him on the show. But we can predict things and, we kind of can tell where things are going. I did not predict that she was just going to shoot him in the head like that. In front of
nope.
everybody.
Did not see that coming whatsoever.
Yeah. So let's talk about Oz a little bit then. There's that sequence where he's going to go meet with Maroni's wife and they're going to have the exchange. Now, we already talked about the part where he sets his son on fire, but then what I really liked about that was the fire makes this like foam come down to extinguish the flames, and it goes all onto the mushrooms. And
I wasn't 100% sure if that's what fully did in the mushrooms, or it was just because they were sitting on a truck for a while and then maybe they just weren't properly cared for, or maybe it's a combination of the two. One thing I really liked about Oz's plan too is that he also bribed a guard to kill Sal in prison. That's what backfires on him here is that Sal actually escapes after almost being murdered by a security guard in prison.
Yes. You can't friggin' just shiv Clancy Brown. He's got to have more of a role.
Yes, he definitely does.
Yeah. So he goes and he's staying in some kind of like, I don't know, cabin in the woods. And then Sophia finds him. And I like it because she's like, I like the motif in here. It's very wood. Or you're into wood or something like that. And then she makes her proposal to him, and he's like, well, the Falcones and the Maronis have been fighting for generations or something like that. And she's like, well, there's no more Falcones anymore. So I really like that point too. But don't you feel like one of them is going to try to double cross the other one before the show's over?
Oh, of course. 100%. One or both of them are not making it out of the show alive.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I hope that she is. I'm okay if they kill off Clancy Brown.
Yeah, and nothing against Clancy Brown or anything. He's awesome.
No, I love Clancy Brown. Yeah. So with Victor has to take care of Oz's mom. Everyone kind of goes into hiding. Oz's girlfriend that he has doesn't want to go with him, and so they go to Victor's old neighborhood. Now, that was where it still like really felt like no man's land there. That was really rough.
That's definitely the vibe. This is the first we're really seeing of it beyond what the initial, incoming water coming from the episode 3, and it's messed up there. And obviously we see, what was his name? Squid.
He had some stupid name.
He got a stupid name, but I mean, they implied that he was trouble back in episode 3 in the flashback. So I'm sure that's going to come up here. Actually, when there's a scene that opens up with Vic sleeping on the chair in that apartment, I thought that was Squid coming in to do something. I didn't expect it to be Oz.
Right. We'll probably see like Squid come in and mess things up in the next episode or the final episode. But it's a really rough apartment that they're in. We get a little bit more Penguin's backstory. He says that, that he grew up in an apartment like this in the same neighborhood. Then they also mention his brothers. At one point, the mom has this baseball glove and she thinks that Victor is one of the brothers. And, we see that baseball glove later. What's interesting is that Victor asks Oz, what happened to your brothers? And Oz says the city took them.
Yeah.
And I think that it's ambiguous enough to be like he could have killed his brothers too, or at least one of them.
Yes. To me, the city took them means that crime in the city took them. This life that he's in took them, and it's very possible that he was involved in their actual deaths somehow. Whether it's he actually killed them or some operation they were all in together went bad, because clearly that happens a lot to us.
Yes. So Oz is like at his lowest. His mom's mad at him, and like his girlfriend essentially like dumped him. Like his product, he's almost out of his product. At the very end, it's kind of reminiscent of the Amazing Spider-Man 2, because he finds like a token, and then he's like, oh yeah, and then he finds this whole underground labyrinth. Yeah. Did you, when you were watching that scene, did you think to yourself, oh, maybe they're actually tapping into Batman Returns a little bit to give the Penguin a
sewer lair, essentially? Yeah. I also kept thinking Ninja Turtles. Like, oh my god, the Turtles are going to show up. Maybe though, I know that's not anything. But
I mean, that'd be fucking awesome if they did.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you got like the trolley car there. It just screamed Ninja Turtles 2 to me.
Right. Exactly. When they find that. Yeah. So, like, okay, so he's gonna be down there. It's interesting because like we have the underground, like the sewer lair, just like in Batman Returns, and we've already had the Iceberg Lounge, which is like a big Penguin thing in the comics and in animated stuff.
Yep.
Like, what do you think they're gonna do down there? They're gonna grow the mushrooms and then just like maybe use the tunnels to get around the city?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be. They're going to have this kind of fast track advantage to get around the city. They're going to have their base of operations in there. It's going to be secret, because I guess nobody thinks about there because it's abandoned, and they're going to grow the mushrooms down there where it's nice and humid. And nobody's going to find them.
Do you think? Yes, maybe, yeah. Do you think that in the Batman 2 we're going to get a sequence where Batman goes down there?
I mean, I probably, because I'd imagine that he's got to be in it. Colin Farrell has to be in it. Penguin has to be in it.
Yeah.
Even if it's just in the background, or I don't know, maybe he'll be a main villain. I mean, we haven't really had Penguin be a main attraction villain since Batman Returns.
Right. Yeah, he hasn't been in anything else. That's right. Wow, holy shit. Because that was like 1992 or something.
Yeah, I mean, he's in plenty of cartoon episodes, but like really to be a focal point of something, he's really more a part of like Gotham, the character of Gotham City, because he's just part of the criminal underworld, and he is his own kind of threat, I guess. And he's not even necessarily evil anymore. He's really just kind of trying to game that crime syndicate system. And he's like an informant sometimes, really.
Right. I mean, that in itself is evil, because he's like, making crime exist, and like it leads to like people selling drugs or prostitution, all that kind of stuff. But wow, that sounds so like conservative.
But it is, it's weird to say that's a lesser evil, but in the world with crazy things like the Riddler and the Joker and shit, it really kind of is.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly the point. Yeah. He's not like committing mass murder or like blowing innocent people up. Right. Yeah. So, is there anything else you wanted to say about the Penguin episode 5?
No, I think that's about it.
Yeah, really great fucking show. I enjoy watching it every week. I enjoy talking to you about it every week. If you guys enjoyed this very brief review of the Penguin, make sure that you subscribe. Brian and I will be here for the next 2. I actually have to go dip out and go see Venom: The Last Dance, which I'm sure is not anywhere near as good as the Penguin, but that's why we're making this short and sweet. But thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys real